Money buys sadness. Hell, if you have enough money, you can have the meanings of both happiness and sadness legally changed to mean candy. That's money. That's what money can do. You don't like the face? Money can change that. You don't like the friends? Buy some new ones. Feeling frisky and want to annoy an entire country? Buy some time on the airwaves and broadcast a song that drives the population insane. And no one can arrest Jessie J for Bang Bang Into the Room because that song makes money. That's money. And when you're worth over $1 billion, there really isn't anything you can't do. Just ask El Chapo Guzman, because he's probably right behind you. So back in the day, that's the 80s, the head crime syndicate in Mexico was the Guadalajara cartel, headed up by Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, a.k.a. El Padrino, Ernesto Fernesca Carrello, a.k.a. Don Neto, and Juan Jose Esperagoza Moreno, a.k.a. El Azul. One of the drug lords of the Guadalajara cartel was Hector Palma, a.k.a. El Güero, and one of his main drug transporters was a dude named Joaquin Guzman, a.k.a. El Chapo. Why so many nicknames? Because you don't get a lot of luxury time when you're in the drug biz, and Mexican names are longer than a meatloaf ballad, so you gotta economize. Now, the Colombians really control the drug trade, and Mexico is a secondary route next to Central and South America. But after a DEA crackdown put pressure on those cartels, the Colombians gave the Guadalajara cartel more control to take the squeeze off. Kind of like when the party's out of control, so you move everybody to Craig's place before the cops come, because Craig's place has a dining room and his neighbors are cool. So this DEA agent infiltrated the Guadalajara cartel during this time, and Gallardo found out, had the DEA agent killed Tony Soprano style, and then got himself arrested. While in jail, Gallardo used his connections to arrange a summit at Acapulco to discuss the future of the cartel. And if only we were a fly on the wall during that PowerPoint presentation. The territories are divided, and El Chapo Guzman gets a nice big chunk and becomes the Scarface of the Sinaloa cartel, where he organized the shipment of over 4,600 pounds of weed and 10,504 pounds of cocaine, and Probs wore a lot of polo shirts. He did this through a series of intricate tunnels to get the drugs across the border, and he paid people off with briefcases filled with millions of dollars in cash, flown from the U.S. to Mexico City for 13 years, until he accidentally shot the Cardinal and Archbishop of Guadalajara in a crossfire during the turf war against the Tijuana cartel, pissing off the entire Catholic Church, the Mexican people, and many politicians. What did you do in the 90s? So Guzman flees to Mexico City, and he stays at a hotel for 10 days, paying his associates over $400 million to keep the company going, and that's a badass payoff in any business. But you gotta wonder, when your boss hands you a suitcase filled with millions of dollars, what you're gonna tell your staff at the employee rollout the next morning. So, he gets a fake passport and tries to get to El Salvador, but he bribes the wrong military official with $1.2 million, and said official turns him in, and Guzman was arrested on June 9th, 1993. God, Wednesdays, right? El Chapo means the short guy, by the way, because he was short. The man was a drug kingpin, all right? He didn't have time for clever shit. So, El Chapo is arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison at the Puente Grande in Jalisco. But he continues to run the cartel through his brother Arturo, a.k.a. El Pollo. And that's some tight family, if you agree to run the business when everybody calls you the chicken. While in prison, associates bring him more of his famous briefcase money, which he uses to bribe prison guards, and even meets his longtime mistress and business partner, former police officer Zulema Hernandez, who successfully moves the cartel's influence to Mexico City. Then, 8 years later, Guzman escapes from prison by hiding in a laundry cart, which was rolled to a truck that drove him to a gas station where he escaped into the middle of the night. And while that might just happen to Kevin James, or the dudes from The Hangover. It doesn't just happen in real life. Turns out, Guzman had the entire prison system on his payroll. And they arranged the escape like a messed up surprise party that everybody, even the birthday boy, is in on, costing Guzman over $2.5 million. So, Guzman goes on to take over the Ciudad Juarez crossing points by taking on the Juarez cartel, which he does in 2004 by hiring assassins to murder the head of the Juarez cartel, Rodolfo Carrello Fuentes. By the way, money can buy you assassins. This throws the Juarez into the forefront of the Mexican drug war, and Guzman violates the non-aggression pact that the major cartels have signed, and the war claims over 50,000 people and counting since 2006. In the middle of all this, his top lieutenants, the Beltran-Leyva brothers, are partying too hard. So Guzman lays the smackdown on them, kind of like when you have to have that talk with your roommate Brett for bringing his work buddies over every night and burning a Tombstone pizza more than 5 times because you know the names you're going to call the cops. Seriously, you're a grown man! You can sprint for delivery or at least learn how to use a goddamn oven. It's an oven. The Sumerians used ovens, Brett. Except, instead of actually talking to him, Guzman orders the eldest brother's arrest, which seems like a victory to the DEA, but really, it was kind of part of the whole holy rope-a-dope circus that was the drug war anyway. The brothers get pissed and declare war on Guzman, hiring a hit squad called Los Zetas. By the way, money can also buy you a hit squad. So, 2008, the Beltran brothers formed their own cartel. Meanwhile, Guzman's still on the run and no one knows where he is. But it's business as usual, because that's what happens when you're the wealthiest drug kingpin in the world, worth over $1 billion, so rich, in fact, that he was named the 10th richest man in Mexico. Forbes magazine listed him as the most powerful person in the world from 2009 to 2011, and the Chicago Crime Commission named him public enemy #1 for his influence in the Chicago drug scene, even though there's no evidence that he's ever actually been to Chicago. The last person to ever get that sweet distinction was none other than Al Capone. So, El Chapo is Breaking Bad, starring Tony Soprano, based on Scarface, which is actually based on Al Capone. And still, no one knew where the hell he was. That's money, man. That's what money does. Then, 2014, Mexican military officers follow a tip from Guzman's bodyguard, and with the help of Mexican Navy, DEA, and the U.S. fucking Marshal's Office, arrest him in a beachfront hotel in Mazatlan. And to Guzman's credit, it's hard to get a beachfront hotel in Mazatlan. So Guzman goes back to prison on February 22nd, 2014, to a small cell with 1 bed, 1 shower, 23 hours of solitary confinement, awaiting charges that, if convicted, would add up to 400 years in prison. But then, on July 11th, 2015, only a year and change after his arrest, El Chapo escaped from prison again. Because fuck you. Because they thought it was a good idea to put a guy known for tunneling across the border from US to Mexico in solitary confinement. Because it should not be a surprise that a guy who pioneered the briefcase method of delivering millions of dollars to bribe every prison official in Mexico would end up bribing every other prison official in Mexico. Because it was a stupid idea to assume that a guy whose nickname literally means the short guy would not be amazing at sneaking out of things. Because El Chapo Guzman is the Walt Disney of drug kingpins. Because money. So much money, in fact, that the only way that the authorities realized he'd escaped was when they noticed he'd been taking a 2-hour shower. And when they busted open his cell, they found a tunnel from his shower to an unfinished house construction site in Santa Juanita, a mile away. The tunnel was tricked out with artificial lights, air ducts, and, this is true, a working motorcycle on a track to drive him to the safe house. 31 people were questioned, including the director of the prison, Valentin Lerma, which you can file under the no shit section of the X-Files. The The government has placed a $3.8 million bounty on Guzman's capture, and as of today, he is still at large. And the people love it. Citizens of Curaçao, the capital of Guzman's home state, celebrated with a parade when they heard El Chapo escaped. One woman held up a sign that says, quote, "El Chapo is more of a president than Peña Nieto, who is the current president of Mexico." One crowd member told the New York Times that El Chapo was, quote, "a living legend, like Al Capone, like a character on a television show, except he's alive and real," which is like admiring Jeffrey Dahmer, because he's real, not like that poser Dexter. In the town of, I'm going to try this one, hold up. In the town of Badiraguato, where El Chapo grew up, he is on the list of notable people right next to a general from the Mexican Revolution, a journalist, and a congressman. He is known as the Mexican Robin Hood, which makes sense. If instead of robbing the rich and giving to the poor, Robin Hood sold a shitload of cocaine and ordered the murder of a bunch of people in a cartel turf war. And that's money, people. It's pretty simple. You make the money, you can do whatever you want. And that's just how it is, man. You got the green, you got the steam. You got the cash, you got the pass. You got the bail, you're out of jail. Or in the case of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, you got the pesos. You can hire an army of Disney Imagineers to build you an escape tunnel with lights, central air, and a fucking motorcycle ride free. One has to wonder if there were like plans for a hot tub monorail with its own Starbucks and cigar lounge, but they just like ran out of time. Money. That's what money can do. And in the end, if you make the people love you, after 50,000 and counting have died in your drug war, then maybe you got too much. Adios.